The table wasn't reserved for people like him. Mark dressed simply but sharp, dark trousers, a clean button-up, fresh haircut. He looked in the mirror and nodded to himself. Good enough. It was an important night. His girlfriend Hannah had insisted on going to Modell, a high-end restaurant downtown, nearly impossible to get into without a reservation. He had checked the menu beforehand, read reviews. Expensive, very, but he knew he could afford it once. One evening. For her. For them. They met on the corner of 47th Street. Hannah, white, dreamy-eyed, soft-voiced, wore a beige coat and a small smile. Mark always felt a little different around her. Not less. Just different. "You sure you want to go there?" he asked. "Of course. I've always wanted to. And you promised." He smiled, held her close. They walked in. The restaurant greeted them with soft lighting, the hush of fine tablecloths, and the aroma of wine. It looked like the photos. Perfect. Except for the maitre d's look. Quick, assessing, and something in Mark's stomach tightened. "Good evening. Table for two?" "Yes, reservation under Hannah Seaford." The maitre d' glanced at the screen, then back at them, then past them as if they didn't exist. "One moment," he said. "Please wait near the entrance." They waited. Nearly 7 minutes passed. In that time, 3 white couples were seated. Some had clearly arrived after them. Hannah fidgeted. Mark said nothing, but he felt it. That look. "You don't belong here." Finally, they were called. Their table was next to the restrooms. Small, wobbly, smelled faintly of bleach. "Excuse me," Hannah said. "We requested a window table." "That's all that's left," the maitre d' replied calmly. Mark wanted to stand, to leave, but Hannah touched his hand. "It's okay. For us, all right?" they ordered. The food came late. Mark's steak was nearly raw, though he'd asked for medium well. He mentioned it. The waiter nodded. Nothing changed. A nearby table of an older white couple in expensive coats stared at them, the man's eyes fixed, cold. His wife leaned in, whispering. Then the man stood, walked to the manager. Minutes later, the manager approached their table. "Excuse me, sir," he said. "There's been a mix-up. This table is reserved. We'll have to ask you to move." "We've been sitting here for an hour," Mark said, trying to stay calm. "I understand, but this table is for a regular guest." Mark slowly rose. Hannah stood too. "You want us to move to where?" "There's space available in the lounge area." "You want us to give up the table we were given after an hour and sit at the bar?" Mark looked him in the eyes. "This is not negotiable." Mark felt heat rising in his chest, like he was back in high school when the security guard stopped him. "Do you really go here? Or in the store when the clerk called security just because he looked too long at the watches?" "No," he said. "You know what? We're leaving." Hannah looked stunned, but he was already walking. Proud, but broken. They stood outside. The wind was sharp. Mark lit a cigarette. I didn't know it could be like that," Hannah said quietly. "You weren't supposed to," he answered. "Now you do." She held his hand. "Want to go home?" He nodded. They walked away. Inside, someone else was being seated at their table, a white couple in fur and wine. They walked in silence for several blocks. The cold air made Hannah's cheeks red, but she didn't complain. Mark's jaw was tight. He wasn't angry. He was tired. That moment, that stare from the manager, the calculated calm of the maitre d'. He had seen it before. He remembered being 12, walking with his mom through a department store when a security guard asked if he was lost. He remembered his high school teacher pulling him aside after class, saying, "You're articulate. That's surprising." He remembered the job interview where the woman smiled and said, "We're going with someone who fits the team culture a little better." He never talked about it, because what would he say? That it felt like carrying a weight everyone else refused to see? Now Hannah had seen it, and she didn't know what to say either. She sat beside him on the bus. Their hands weren't touching. She began. "It wasn't supposed to happen like that." Mark turned his head slowly. "No," he said. "It was always going to happen like that. The only surprise is that you were there to see it." Later that night, after the post went viral, his phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Old college classmates, people he hadn't spoken to in years. Some just wrote, "Damn." Others, "I had no idea, man." His mother called him the next morning. She had seen it too. "You kept your head. I'm proud of you. It shouldn't have to be this way." "I know, baby. But for us, it still is." 2 weeks later, Hannah tried to suggest another restaurant. "I made sure this one's black-owned," she said. Mark looked at her quiet. He wasn't angry, just tired. "It's not about who owns the place, Han. It's about the room we walk into, the eyes, the silence." They didn't go out that night. He stopped looking in mirrors for a while, not because of what he saw, but because of what other people refused to.